Take a stroll through this medicinal herb garden in London, kept secluded from the public for more than 3 centuries. Visit a naturalistic garden created on the rustic French Polynesian island of Huahine, and see a fascinating assortment of cacti and other native plants at the Devil's Pool in Mexico. Join us now for an enlightening world garden tour. Along the River Thames in the well-known Chelsea district of London is a secret garden created to instruct a learned few about the mysteries of healing plants. This is the Chelsea Physic Garden, a living laboratory, research center, and one of the most unique and relatively unknown historic gardens in England.
The Chelsea Physic Garden is the second oldest botanic garden in England, and it was founded in 1673 by the Society of Apothecaries.
Apothecaries in England were practitioners licensed to prescribe and dispense drugs. The site of the garden was donated by apothecary Sir Hans Sloane, who established strict legal terms and conditions for the garden's future.
When he first gave the garden to the Society of Apothecaries, he wrote an indenture so that the land would remain permanently belonging to the apothecaries. And he said that the purpose of the garden was so that the apprentices could learn to distinguish good and useful plants from those that bore resemblance to them and yet were hurtful. So the whole garden is based around the idea of usefulness. The garden here is unique because it is the only garden which retains the title Physic after the old name for the healing arts, and it still has a very strong link with medicine and medicinal plant research. Originally, all the botanic gardens in the world were physic gardens because then medicine was not effectively differentiated from botany, and people were interested in plants because of their medicinal function and purposes.
It hasn't been that long since this secret garden was first revealed to the masses. In 1983, 310 years after it was founded, the garden was finally opened to the public. The over 6,000 species in the garden are divided into specific areas, including areas for medicinal plants, plants from the Mediterranean, and rare species. Among the endangered plants here is this form of statice called sea lavender. It only grows in one spot on the island of Tenerife, which is located within the Canary Islands and is threatened by grazing goats. This cliff-dwelling plant, Portulus maxillotus, is also native to Tenerife. Rock slides and erosion have threatened its only wild population. Many of the Mediterranean plants here at the Chelsea Physic Garden are part of a collection sponsored by the National Council for the Conservation of Plants and Gardens.
We hold the National Collection of cistus here, and cistus are a group, the common name is sun roses. They live in Mediterranean areas. They're very good horticultural plants, but they are useful in perfumery, and they also produce a gum, which is important in bronchial treatment. And we hold all the known species, all the known cultivars and variants of the species.
The greenhouses contain a range of island endemics, plants of the southern hemisphere, cacti, and insect-eating plants, a research collection of pelargonium and ferns.
The main work of the Physic Garden here at Chelsea is really twofold. It's education and it's research. On the educational side, we try and show the variety of plants that are used by humankind in medicine of one sort or another. On the research side, we do have continuing botanical research here, mainly on ferns and on pelargoniums. Geraniums to you and me, but pelargoniums correctly, mostly from southern and western Africa.
Most of us are only familiar with a few varieties of pelargoniums, but they range from tender annuals to hardy perennials with both flowering and scented varieties.
But we also have a lot of medicinal plant research as well, and we have contracts with 2 major pharmaceutical companies looking for new leads to develop new drugs. And there is a difference in the philosophy behind herbalism to the philosophy of modern pharmaceutical plants, because In modern pharmacy, they tend to abstract one active principle from a plant and then either synthesize it or crop it, but there's one chemical which is significant, whereas in herbalism, there is a belief in treatment with the whole plant. And that's a very different philosophy to modern medicine.
The mandrake is a plant that was once used in herbalism. In fact, it's a member of the tomato family, and its root contains hyoscine, which acted as an anesthetic in the Middle Ages. Other medicinal plants here are used to derive oils for aromatherapy.
All the plants with the blue labels here are ones which are used in aromatherapy. And with these citrus plants, some of the oils are expressed. That means they're crushed out of the rinds of the fruit. But in some of them, the actual flowers are used. And this one is the cultivar from which neroli oil is distilled, and it's used a lot for relieving stress. And citrus oils in general are one of the most important. They're one of the top 3 in terms of the World League of Essential Oil Production.
Aromatherapy oils can have subtle or quite potent effects.
This is the clary sage, which is one of the most important oils used in aromatherapy to relieve stress, but it's a very euphoric oil. And there was an interesting case of somebody who went home in a small car on a very hot day with some of this plant cut in the back of the car, and they arrived home in an extremely intoxicated state just from the effects of the oil that had been released in the heat of the car. At this garden, which is a very warm, almost Mediterranean garden, the essential oils develop very freely and grow well, and so people can understand how important they are in treatment and in industrial production. And then some of the cooler parts of the glasshouses are used for some of our endangered flora from islands of the world, which are particularly under threat.
Though its secret may be out, the Chelsea Physic Garden hopes to continue its work for centuries to come.
I think what I'd like people to take away from the Chelsea Physic Garden is the concept that plants are very, very important, and the conservation of plants is very, very important for health of us all, both in working with plants in our garden and in being cured by plants.
When we return, World Garden Tour heats up on a lush tropical island, and later in a harsh Mexican desert oasis. World Garden Tour now journeys to the Polynesian island of Huahine. It's located 2 hours by boat from Tahiti in the Society Islands chain. Our destination features a remarkable garden created by inventor Tom Kurth and his son Scott. Kurth bought the property in the early 1990s from singer Julio Iglesias, who used it as a retreat. The new owner's plan was to maintain the natural beauty of this tropical jungle while transforming it into a garden that provides visitors the opportunity to get close to the Polynesian vegetation. Because vegetation spreads so quickly in the fertile soil, the Kurths decided to paint with broad strokes first and concentrate on the details later. Proper drainage channels were established utilizing existing natural features. Then broad sweeps of luxurious plants were added to enhance the natural contours of a specific site. For example, at this pool site, a background of ferns was created to cover the arrangement of rocks. A mango tree was then added for additional balance. Traveler's palms provided additional texture and depth, and native matis were added on the top to crown the scene. Radiant red and yellow flowers with rich smells were also added. The process was then repeated at each site. With smaller sites completed, work began on the jungle. For both practical and aesthetic reasons, the goal was to replant it in such a way that it still looked natural.
I preferred that we do things in a sense that would have it appear to be natural. We have such enormous property that to go around and maintain everything with a sickle is impossible. So to do things in broad sweeps and do it with plants that would dominate their area was a very specific focus, so that we could plant things that would take over and require little maintenance.
Great care was taken to preserve delicate details in remaking the jungle as a naturalistic tropical garden. The designers wished to enhance more than intrude. The jungle was first cleared to identify different areas of use. Then the large expanses within the cleared space were categorized and re-established according to foliage type. One area was replanted with a diverse collection of fruit trees, including lime, mango, papaya, guava, and banana. In another area, several varieties of bamboo plants were established. The intensely fragrant native matoi tree was added to another area. This matching and mingling of plants continued throughout the jungle, as it was reforested according to the natural environment and the new plan. Many of the garden's plants hold special meaning for the native Tahitians, and great effort was made to preserve these ethnobotanic plants. Among these important indigenous plants are ginger, with its medicinal properties, birds of paradise, and an incredible assortment of gardenias. In fact, the symbolic flower of Tahiti is a single gardenia. As you can see, envisioning the jungle as a painter's canvas worked beautifully.
It was a lovely experience to be able to, again, work on such a beautiful piece of property, already with such magnificent trees and plants already going. It was a real joy to be able to come in and do what we did.
When we return, World Garden Tour unlocks the hidden botanic secrets of the Devil's Pool in Mexico. The next stop on World Garden Tour visits the rugged beauty of El Charco del Genio, or the Devil's Pool.
All right, this belongs to the ecological conservation area of San Miguel de Allende, which has a botanical garden and several spaces. And this place specifically is called El Charco del Ingenio, with a great landscape. And it finishes at the very bottom with the pond that gives the name to the place, which is the Devil's Pond, El Charco del Ingenio. El Ingenio is a very local way of calling the devil. There's a lot of legends in this place, which is an old historical place in San Miguel de Allende, which has been recovered by a civil association in order to preserve nature, to preserve the historical parts of it, and to open it to the public so they can come and enjoy a place.
El Charco del Genio is located 10 minutes outside the city of San Miguel de Allende in south-central Mexico.
It's not a common park. It's not a park in which you bring the football or the picnic areas or nothing like that. No, this is a place for being by yourself, for walking, for watching, for watching nature, living nature.
This facility spans 250 acres across an arid landscape and includes a botanical garden preserving more than 800 species of native Mexican plants. There's also a greenhouse with 40,000 seedlings waiting to be planted, many of them precious endangered species. And deep within this canyon in the ecological park is the Devil's Pool itself, an ancient ceremonial site fed by a seasonal river. Visitors will also find an 18th century aqueduct connecting the ruins of an old hacienda to the lake created by the Los Colonias Dam. And the ceremonial Plaza de los Cuatro Vientos. It features abstract depictions of the four winds and the sun. These are central to the mythology of the native Chichimec Indians, who hold a celebration here each spring to ensure a good crop.
All right, this garden, this natural reserve, has about 6 miles of paths through which people can walk and visit the place. When we constructed this place, we thought we didn't have to do many things. We only had to do paths, trails, in order to open routes so people could meet with Mexican nature. We don't want to transform the place. We don't want to alter the ecosystems that persist here.
Maintaining the ecological balance of the garden is a challenge because of the delicacy of many of the species of plants, such as this large Garambuyo cactus.
That's a plant that has suffered a lot because there was a great cold a year and a half ago, a year ago more or less, and so that's why they are in such a bad state, because there was a very extraordinary freezing. No?
Primary among the hundreds of species of native plants cared for in the Conservancy are dazzling varieties of cactus, which discourage predators with their vicious thorns. Many cacti, such as this Mammillaria rubrograndis, offer brilliant bursts of color. Another related cactus, the Mammillaria senilis, presents a brilliant red flower, while this stenocactus tops itself off with a vibrant purple crown. The facility cares for many endangered cacti, which are decreasing in numbers due to modification of their native habitats. These cacti are cultivated in pots in the Conservancy's greenhouse. Potting the plants helps them multiply, which is the first step towards repropagation. But because cacti often grow very slowly, it can take decades to build up a population large enough to successfully reintroduce the species. Because the process is so time-consuming, plants like this Mammillaria candida have become rare and have a greater need for protection. The golden barrel is another variety of cacti which has become endangered, in part because its pulp can be used to make a popular cactus candy. These large golden barrels were moved to avoid drowning when the dam was constructed. Along with the rarer species, El Charco de Jaeno also serves as a home for more common and useful plants.
In this place, in El Charco del Ingenio, you can watch many nopales, like the one I have in front. It's a big family called Opuntia, and here we have 7 or 8 different kinds of these nopales. In Mexico, we used to eat this kind of plants in salads, in many other ways, and also the fruits, which is called prickly pear, I think. No, we call them tunas. And this tunas is basic. Okay. It's a basic fruit for Mexican nutrition. In many places in Mexico, people eat this fruit. And it's very sweet and delicious.
This hardy cholla plant is often used by local ranchers as a natural fence. Other plants here play a less practical but equally important role in the lives of the local people.
Well, this is a very interesting plant, which is called cucharilla because it has like little spoon, it would be in English. No? It has the form of a little spoon, and its Latin name is Dacilirium longissimo. It's used by the people here in San Miguel in the ceremonies as an offering for in the churches, outside of the churches, and it's a very old tradition here in San Miguel, and we have it as an example of the social use of certain plants here in San Miguel.
Find out how to grow your own potted cacti when we return to World Garden Tour. World Garden Tour continues now in the Conservancy at El Charco de Jaeno, a Mexican national treasure. With specimens representative of 5 different Mexican climate zones, El Charco de Jaeno offers visitors an opportunity to get a first-hand look at an incredible variety of Mexican plants, including rare and beautiful trees, succulents, and cacti. If you'd like to raise some potted cacti, just like they do here at El Charco de Jaeno, here are a few suggestions. First, select a suitable container with enough room for 2 or 3 years' growth, and fill it with a commercially available cactus potting soil, or a mixture of half unsterilized rotted leaf mold and half sterilized coarse sand. The key is to get good drainage. With good drainage, you're less likely to overwater your cacti. For desert cacti, let the soil nearly dry out before watering. If you're able to give your cacti 4 to 5 hours of direct sunlight a day and protect them from freezing, you'll have potted cacti that can last for years. From a rugged Mexican canyon filled with botanical surprises to a lush Polynesian garden paradise to a medicinal plant garden in London, we thank you for traveling with us and hope you'll join us again next time on World Garden Tour.